Hello, everyone, and welcome to Brave Storytime. My name is Lisa Karasek, and I am the Community Manager for Brave Healer Productions. And joining me today is Ms. Kristi Trader,
Hello.
lovely Kristi Trader, and she is going to be reading her chapter from EmbodyKind. Are you lead author for EmbodyKind? You
Yeah. Yep.
are. Okay, awesome. And your chapter is, go ahead.
The disease of not good enough, navigating the symptoms inside and outside of our bodies.
Sorry, even though I just wrote it, I had to peek again.
No worries.
Awesome. All righty, Kristi, thank you for bringing this beautiful, beautiful book to the world. It has such a powerful message, and we're really grateful that you have gifted the world with your lovely message. So, what I want to know first, Kristi, is how did this book come about? What's the story behind the book?
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, how fun. What a fun question. So my work actually kind of transpired that I was working in organizations doing leadership development, team building, and I had a great friend call me and say, "Hey, the work that you're doing with organizations and teams is really similar to the work that we're doing in schools. Would you be interested?" And at first, I'll be totally honest, my answer was hell no. And my thought was, I had two boys of my own. I still have two boys of my own. And I just thought, oh my gosh, there's so much work. And I can't imagine doing that amount of work with a bunch of students. And I wasn't sure like how full time it was, how much I was going to be in the classroom with these students. And she is incredibly convincing. And she said, just come see what we're doing. She lives in California. And so, it was, trip to see a friend. It was a trip to California. And I said, okay. And had a great time, got to see what they were doing. And I fell in love with the program. I thought, I wish somebody had done this when I was in school because I was so convinced that relationships and community would have been done so incredibly different. Um, and I think that what we're seeing actually from the program is that discipline rates would be so incredibly different because what we're doing is actually we're sharing stories with each other and people are getting to know each other versus making assumptions about each other. And I thought, how cool to do that when we're younger versus my work, I felt like at the time was almost like reverse engineering that. I was actually, people would ask me at dinner parties, what do you do? And when I was working in organizations, I would say, I'm teaching executives kindergarten skills. And it really felt like that. I thought I'm teaching them to play nice in the sandbox, use your words, step out from behind your desk. And so it just started slowly transforming into this movement where it went from organizations to schools. And then I started having people say, hey, do you do this like in homes? Like, would you work with me and my partner? Would you work with me and my kids? Would you work with just me doing like some of your personal development work? And so there's kind of like those three main spaces. And I had one of the other co-authors who might be listening, Lulu, if you're listening today, she's amazing. She said, you've got to hear about this Brave Healer work. Amazing people, amazing publisher. Laura's fantastic. This collaborative movement in writing books is amazing. And I was hooked the minute I heard about it because I thought, I love the idea of writing a book. I love the idea of sharing my ideas. Um, what I was never sold on was sharing my ideas solely. I thought, who really cares to read a whole book from me? Um, and maybe that's kind of strange. I don't know. But what I really loved was sharing the idea of kindness and sharing the idea of my work and what I was passionate about. and doing it with some of my favorite people. And so when I had that opportunity, I jumped on it. And day one, we hit the ground running, and it's become a huge success. And we're just having so much fun doing it.
I love that. I
Yeah.
did not know that whole backstory. Wonderful. I'm excited now. Even though I've read your chapter already, yeah, I'm different parts of the book that's going to have whole new meaning now. I have to go back. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So today, though, so even though you're lead author, you still contributed a chapter to the book. So tell
Yeah.
us about your chapter.
Yeah, so my chapter that I'm going to read and share is I remember growing up, and throughout my years of growing up, I never felt good enough in any situation, in any circumstance, in any group. And um, as I grew up and I started becoming an adult and I started speaking to more groups and I started doing my teaching and training, I started finding that this was a common thread for a lot of people, especially women. And I thought, oh my gosh, like I'm not alone. I'm not the only one. And it's C.S. Lewis that said, friendship starts at the moment when someone says, what? You too? I'm not the only one. And it was so interesting to me because I started hearing all of these people say, like, you too, like you didn't feel good enough, you didn't feel like you were doing enough, or like you weren't perfect enough, or you didn't get enough A's, or you didn't, get enough whatever, stars or gold stars, or you didn't get enough kudos or varsity letters or right. And I think we all kind of have some of those stories. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to share mine because I think that there's so many of us who have those stories and they're all so similar. And I think if we can all share those stories and realize that we're not alone and that it's a storyline that we tell ourselves. And not only do we tell ourselves the story, but then we also suffer because we tell ourselves the story. And so my chapter is really about what is the story that we tell ourselves, and then how do we suffer emotionally and physically because we tell ourselves the story.
One of the phrases I use often is, there's the real story and then there's the perceived story, the true
Yeah.
story and the fantastical story.
Yep.
So, yeah. So my next question piggybacks on that. So great intro, by the way. So with all of that said, you got to write it. So how did it feel to actually write it?
Ooh. Oh, wow. So, um, some background, I guess, for this last fall. My falls are typically full of me working in schools, doing this bullying prevention work, doing some restorative practice work. Um, I had just came off of working with, I believe about 20 different schools, about 620 students, like 115 staff. And so over the last 12 years of doing that, I've become really accustomed to telling the story because it's something that I share, but it's never something that I necessarily took the time to write down. And so it was so interesting to actually take the time to write it down and then see the words on paper or I mean, now I'm seeing them on paper, but at first to see them on the computer screen and go, wow, like that's my story. That's something that I experienced. Um, and to realize the weight of it. And then to also realize that my age when I'm telling some of these stories, and that I grew up in a very traditional home. both parents alive, both parents still together. All of my needs were met. And I'm working with students every day who are not coming from traditional homes. They're not with both parents. All their needs aren't met. And they're taking on some of these stories and worse. And I would say more often than not, it's worse. And so not only to see my story in writing and on paper and realize the heaviness of it, but then to realize that what I experienced is such a nugget of what our students are currently experiencing. And I would even take it further to say what our adults are experiencing in our organizations. And so just a brushstroke of what our communities are experiencing as a whole. And you know, how do we come together to be kind to one another when we're all experiencing such heavy things and we're not talking about them?
Beautiful. I understand how you feel too. Yeah, seeing it and connecting with it on another level. It's a game changer.
Yep.
All righty. With all of that, is there anything you want to say before we begin reading? Before you begin reading? We're ready to read.
No, I'm ready. Let's do this.
All righty. Go ahead and read your chapter. Thank you.
All righty. Thanks, Lisa. Here we
Yeah.
go. So here's my story. I rushed home from work in my mom mobile, late, like every day, gas on the pedal, eyes in the rearview mirror, looking for cops, voice trying to speak over my two boys on the other line of the cell phone. I pulled into the driveway with the expectation that everything should run smoothly. I gave clear instructions, but alas, I'd always find something wrong, just as I was always programmed. Nothing was ever good enough. I walked in with the bag of work I needed to complete that evening. The dog was panting and slobbering all over my work clothes, and nothing I asked for was completed. The boys were not dressed for soccer. Nothing was out to cook for dinner. I peeked at their folders from work. No homework was done between when the bus dropped them off and when I got home from work. I took a deep breath, threw something frozen in a pan, and yelled at the boys, "Go get dressed for soccer." It wasn't minutes, and they were fighting over whose clothes were whose. I swore we labeled all of them. I went to break up the fight. While I was in the back of the house, their dad came home and asked, "What's burning?" Awesome. I must not have put any water in the pan. Oops. I pitched the dinner into the sink. I got the boys into the car without their cleats on. They would have to figure that out while I put them through a disgusting drive-through. It was the only option between home and the soccer field. They were late and their cleats still weren't on. They limped to the field through freshly rained on grass. I didn't get to change, so my heels dug, one by one, into the soft mud. I bent down to get one of their cleats tied, and Dad got the other one. "You're late. Give me 5 laps." The coaches were thrilled. Everyone finally got situated. The kids were on their bench, ready to start their game, and their dad and I on the sideline, ready to watch the game. Then my pager went off. Yes, one of those ancient things. I walked back through the mud so I didn't distract the parents watching the game. My heels, one by one, going in and out of the grass, and I called the number. It was my boss. She had a question about an Excel spreadsheet. Are you kidding me? A spreadsheet? While Excel can be my superpower, I worked for a hospital. I am not a cardiologist. Why was she paging me? Those things are for emergencies. Why did I even carry one? This was a recurring evening in our home, and I thought, if only my boss could have work set up so I could leave on time. If only the boys could be dressed. If only the boys could take something out for dinner. If only the boys could have their clothes laid out and know whose is whose. If only their dad could come home from work sooner. If only their dad could throw something on for dinner. If only their coach could start practice or games later. If only my boss didn't call me when I was with my family. I had an if only for everyone but myself, because beyond my spreadsheets, I truly felt like I was saving lives. Maybe not like the cardiologist, but here's what I knew at the time. 1/3 to 1/2 of life satisfaction is derived directly from workplace well-being, engagement, and happiness. The assumption then is that more engaged and happy employees would yield community members and thus communities with greater levels of life satisfaction, happier people and communities. My work was in organizational development. Specifically, one of my primary responsibilities was to develop and facilitate a curriculum to improve staff engagement results. I was seeing people's lives, families, work teams, and a community change. I told my boss, when I facilitate these workshops, it's not uncommon for people to cry. She looked at me strangely, shook her head, and stated that she couldn't understand why. What in the curriculum would possibly bring about this reaction? And then she attended one of the workshops and experienced the first activity we did to build trust. We sat in a circle, and for the first time, people who work in a team were asked to respond to questions I modified from the book, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. 1, where did you grow up? 2, tell us about your home life growing up. Parents, siblings, where did you fall in order? 3, what was the most challenging thing about your childhood? 4, what is something unique about you? By the time we got to question 2, someone was crying, and my boss offered the staff member one of her special tissues. People had, 1, never been asked these questions at work, and 2, never experienced someone listening as though they cared. I loved my work so much, and I saw it changing people's lives. But I observed in my department and in myself that we were not walking the talk we promoted to the rest of our workplace. That ate at my soul. I should be clear that this was not uncommon. This is just one story of every workplace I worked up until that point. Dr. Gabor Mate, author of When the Body Says No, Exploring the Stress-Disease Connection, says, if you don't know how to say no, your body will say it for you. Dr. Mate's 11-hour masterclass for healers was integral to defining my practices I'll share in this chapter. His understanding and approach to the body-mind-soul connection are unlike any other medical doctor I have yet to learn from. My body was saying no, and I felt it everywhere inside and outside of my body, physically, emotionally, and relationally. I thought the answer would come from everywhere except myself, because I was raised to be a yes woman, an extra credit doer, a faithful volunteer, the classroom mom, send an extra dozen for the bake sale. Okay, that never really happened. Make a meal for the neighbor who had surgery, etc. All the while working full-time and raising 2 boys. I'm not sure our team ever did this exercise, but if we did, here's what they would have learned about me. I grew up in Brownstown, Michigan. I'm the daughter of Kurt and Lori Byro, who remain married. I'm the oldest of 3, and we all fit social psychologist's definition of birth order and personality. The oldest me, the middle Kurt, and the youngest Carrie. The most challenging thing about my childhood was the disease of not good enough, part of being the oldest child and part of ancestral wounds. Oldest children are dominant and conscientious. We want things done now and right. Firstborns tend to be overachievers. And Dr. Michelle P. Maiden, a child and first therapist, wrote, we often have an intense fear of failure, so nothing we accomplish feels good. This is often passed down in families, traumatically and unconsciously. It started in first grade. I anxiously awaited my turn to get the envelope. I opened it quickly, did a scan, and my heart dropped. I wanted to cry, but we weren't a crying family. I think it showed weakness. So I threw the envelope in my backpack, put my coat on, and lined up to be dismissed and walked home. The 0.8-mile walk home felt like an eternity. My palms were sweaty, and I walked with a pout, grinding my teeth. I'm sure my cheeks were red, and my heart was beating out of my chest, and my mind was swirling with all of the thoughts of what I could have done differently. I walked through the door and I threw the envelope on the counter. My mom opened it, scanned it just like I did, and her first question was, "What is this?" Pointing to the only B on my first grade report card. She was given the disease of not good enough by also being the oldest child and through ancestral wounds. My smartass said, "It's the second letter of the alphabet." This is the foundation of the disease that has racked my body, mind, and soul for decades. Being that I contracted the disease in elementary school, the symptoms showed up very young and progressed rapidly. That same year in first grade, I was given a nickname from a boy in my class because I have asthma and cough a lot: mucus. By third grade, I was taken out of my regular class to participate in advanced classes. I was also labeled talented and gifted. This perpetuated nights of falling asleep, repeating facts and figures. But I wasn't alone. I vividly remember a figure that looked like the Grim Reaper at the foot of my bed each night. He did nothing more than stand there, but still he tortured me, at least through college years. So of course, I didn't sleep well, and I'd wake up frazzled. I would be sick about the content of the day because an A- meant I didn't get an A like everyone else in the group. In this group, we all had this mindset. These were my first bouts of anxiety at 8 years old. By fourth grade, I couldn't balance academic achievement and friends, and my friend group started to leave me out. In fifth grade, I contracted mononucleosis. Sixth grade was my favorite, yet I had to work harder than I'd ever worked because there was a competition every week, and I'd be damned if I was going to lose. What this disease defined is that results, not relationships, were most important to me because recognition was essential to my self-worth and well-being. Another part of this disease is losing time. For example, other than being bullied and constant body image self-talk, most of the 7th through 12th grade is a blur. Part goes back to the nickname and the friend group leaving me out. I didn't want to participate in life because of the way I was treated, so my memories are few. One, though, is very vivid and the reason for the work I do today. The boy that gave me the nickname back in first grade started a chant at an athletic event with his crew of buddies, everyone whose name I remember till this day. They were chanting, "Mucus sucks." The next day, he came to my locker and said, "See you later, Mucus," and gave me a hug. All of this was very strange because we did not speak to one another, and we definitely did not hug one another. The next day, I learned he was found dead. He died by suicide. I continued damaging behaviors to extremes through my higher education and into my career, marriage, and parenting. Those stories will be told in future volumes. Then I learned about the spoon theory. The spoon theory is a visual representation of the mental and physical energy a person has in a period of time to complete activities that can only be replaced by rest. It was developed when Christine Miserandino was at a restaurant with her friend and was asked, "What is it like to have a chronic illness?" Christine gathered all the spoons around her and explained to her friend, while people without chronic illness have unlimited spoons, people with chronic illness start each day with a limited number of spoons and must choose wisely how to spend them. As someone with chronic illness, I was not choosing how to spend my spoons wisely. When we were kids, these stressors in our bodies look like headaches or stomach aches. But when we get older, we have more amazing body parts that have developed for stress to attack. The list of my diagnoses was absurd. I was falling apart at 32, and there was more to come. But I was also not being kind to myself, my body, mind, soul, children, husband, coworkers, workplace, or community. I'm sure the list went on. Do I believe every medical diagnosis was stress related? No. But do I believe I was unhealthy because I continued to expose myself to stress? Yes. As I was experiencing the strong pangs of my body saying no to my work, I was given an amazing opportunity to make a drastic change for myself and my family. What I initially thought I was being asked to do was an evening or weekend commitment and would have looked good on my resume. But what I was actually being asked to do was a part-time contract, which would require I quit the full-time job that was making me sick. I thought there was no way possible I could commit, mostly for financial reasons. But when I was given the offer, it was only $3,000 less than I was making working full-time. I would have been stupid to say no. I was given an opportunity to become aware of and evaluate my ability to embody kind. And then, through intense self-care, therapy, and seeking deep education, I was able to understand family constellations, be a witness to my own story and stressors, and work through the practices I'll share with you in this chapter. I've developed them to be a recipe for success in advocating kindness for yourself as the foundation for kindness to others as a parent, partner, coworker, and as a community member. I have outlined the step-by-step recipe of practices I've developed to help subdue the symptoms of the disease of not good enough. I set aside time for these practices regularly. None of them are something you can simply do once and never return to. I have intentionally only expanded on the main practice in this volume, as my upcoming works will expand on the others. One of the most climactic experiences of my life thus far was a workshop with John Wineland and Kendra Kuno, The Art of Loving Fiercely. This led me to intensive work with Genevieve and Jaya. These experiences are where I found myself, beyond psychology and theory and into the realm of practice. It's where the finishing touches of my own remedy and prescription were developed. The ultimate practice of EmbodyKind requires that you learn to know where you're at in space right now, not past or future, present. Only through this practice can you be available for kindness in the present moment. Willa Blythe Baker says, one of the most important wisdoms is that the body lives in the here and now. The body brings us into the present moment, while the mind is running around with its stories. The mind dives into the past and anticipates the future. It's worrying about this and trying to fix that. The thinking mind is the agitated part of our experience, while the body is centered in the here and now. To open our body, mind, and soul to the present moment, we have to think, what is happening around me? This is exteroception. What is happening on the exterior of you? Exteroception is the 5 senses we typically think of: sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. Where is my body in space? This is proprioception, also known as kinesthesia. Proprioception, in its most basic sense, is body awareness, knowing where your body parts are, coordinating body parts and senses, and knowing how much force to use. What is happening inside my body? This is interoception. What is happening inside of you? Interoception is the nervous system processing internal organ function and autonomic nervous system activity, including emotion across conscious and unconscious levels. There is an interactive meditation if you visit my website at kristitrader.com/books. Other ingredients in the recipe to embody kind that will be discussed in future volumes include get to know thyself. The foundation of my healing and my work with any of my clients is the ancient Greek aphorism, know thyself. Brene Brown says our connection with other people is only as solid and deep as our connection to ourself. In order for me to be connected to you, I have to know who I am. I have to be connected to myself. And I think what we end up doing is we end up desperately searching for connection with other people when we have no idea who we are. 2, meditate and reflect. Find time to be still. Prioritize this time. This time will look different for everyone. Meditation means different things for different people. It has meant different things at different times for myself. Meditation and reflection don't have to be alone. There's power in numbers and intention. C.S. Lewis says, friendship is born at that moment when one person says to another, what? You too? I thought I was the only one. 3, use a coach and or therapist regularly. Even as a coach, I'm constantly surrounding myself with other coaches and therapists for support and advice. Sometimes this is individual work. Other times this is in a group setting. All of us need neutral parties to help guide and direct us. None of us have ever arrived or are free from needing a helping hand. Matthew Kelly says, no woman has ever become great on her own. The people around them help to make them great. We all need people in our lives who raise our standards, remind us of our essential purpose, and challenge us to become the best version of ourselves. Embody kind. Bring your body, mind, and soul into the present moment. Know what's happening around you. Be aware of your senses. Feel where your body is in space. Know how to use it. Sense what's happening inside your body. Process the conscious and unconscious. And finally, practice regularly. John Wineland says, self-expression is actually a muscle that needs to be exercised. And part of learning the artistry of love is learning to express various things through your body, through your heart. If for some reason you were not celebrated as a child in the expression of your truth through your heart, your body will clamp down and not express things you feel or want to express. So you have to create space to clear the pipes and express those unfelt emotions. We all get into a habit of the things we're okay expressing. The things we aren't okay expressing, but feel anyway, get stuck in our bodies. Then we cannot fully be available because we have knots of unfelt feelings. Creating a regular practice of self-expression will exercise that muscle and make you more available for love. This recipe can be framed for however you need to approach the method at any given time. For example, you can use it to help subdue the symptoms of the disease of not good enough, or you can use it to find success in advocating kindness for yourself as the foundation for kindness to others, as a parent, as a partner, as a coworker, and as a community member. Be present. Meet the moment with authenticity and vulnerability. Find yourself. Be open to embody kind.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Lisa.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Ah, so there were quite a few points that I related to because I am also the oldest. Um, so yeah, thank you for that. Um, I'm assuming that you have read your chapter out loud previously before today, at least at one other time, I'm assuming.
I
Have you?
have not.
Really? Okay.
Today was my first.
Wow. Okay, well, you did a great job. How did that feel then, knowing that hundreds of, if not more, people are going to watch this and see this and hear your voice, tell your own story and feel all of those feelings. And how does that make you feel?
Yeah, I think it feels even more impactful. As I was mentioning earlier, I think as I learned through my teachings and my trainings, as I was in organizations, I think this is the story of so many, and it's just not talked about. Um, and what I found is that my story is even on the lighter side of so many. I think that so many people have experienced so much more at so much greater depth and so much greater hurt and harm. And so I think, knowing that this is going to be heard by so many is um, a really amazing, um, what's the word? It's a really amazing torch to carry, right? Like, how awesome to be generating that conversation and to be um, generating those feelings in other people and to be generating those ideas that, you are good enough just as you are. Here's some practices that you can use, actually. If you're interested, here's our communities that you can be involved in. Be kind to yourself, be kind to each other, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's really amazing to be starting that conversation.
Yeah, be strong enough, be comfortable enough to have the hard conversation, to have the difficult conversation. I agree. Beautiful. Well, thank you. Like I said, I resonated with so much in that chapter. Um, so much. Very, very good. And to hear it in your voice, is totally different than reading it on my own, like you're saying.
Yeah,
So thank you for that. Um,
absolutely.
do you have anything else that you want to say? Any final messages, or do you have a gift for the audience, or do you want to send them somewhere specific, or any final?
Yeah, so all of my social media, so a couple things actually. And
And
I
to let the listener know, we are going to put all of the notes and all of Kristi's information, how to find her, where to find her, all that kind of good stuff in the notes. So you will have that.
Awesome, thank you.
Mhm.
So, yes, so there is a meditation that I've actually read for folks, kind of as like a free gift that they can go to kristitrader.com/books. That's there. I took some time to do that. I want to say it's within the 5 minute range. It's not long, but it's just long enough that people can go and listen to it and, just hopefully take it in and, take some deep breaths and, start your day off right or end it right, whichever, works for folks. As you mentioned, you're going to put all of my information down. So my LinkedIn, my Facebook, my Instagram, my, Twitter, or what is it now, X, all of my social. So anyway, you want to get in touch with me. I am more than happy to do a 30-minute free consult with anybody who'd like to get in touch with me and talk about, best ways to work together. I always offer that. And I actually already chose two folks earlier that I am sending copies of my books to, and I actually already put them out on my table to make sure that I sign them. So it is Ashley Neary and Herschel Poger. And I'm excited to send those out to you guys. And I also have some ebooks available. So if you're on today and you're interested in an ebook, shoot me a message and I'm happy to send you an ebook.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Kristi.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alrighty, folks, thank you so much for joining us today for Brave Story Time, where your words will change the world. Your brave words will change the world. We look forward to seeing you next time.